want to talk to you very briefly today about an issue that has come to the forefront once again. It has been clarified in the scientific community in the 1950s, so that was about 70 years ago, but it keeps coming back, and that is a question that I often encounter when I tell people I'm a vegetarian or when I encourage some patients to consider becoming vegetarians. And that question is, okay, but where would I get my proteins? Where do vegetarians get their proteins? And the implication of that is that perhaps if one is a vegetarian, one has to be very careful to make sure that they get all the protein that they need in a day. Again, the implication being that on a vegetarian diet, this could be difficult, could be problematic to make it happen. And the reality couldn't be further than the truth. So I wanted to discuss with you this issue tonight. And let's start with looking at the recommended daily allowance for protein for adults, whether women or men. The daily recommended amount of protein that we should be ingesting can be found out using these two formulas, either by multiplying our body weight in kilograms, and that is the ideal body weight. If we have some extra kilograms, those don't count in this formula. So first we have to figure out what our ideal weight is, and then we multiply that by 0.8, and we get the number of grams of protein we need in a day. And I'm giving you here an example of a female that weighs 140 pounds, which is equivalent to about 63.5 kilograms. This metric English system is a pain, isn't it? I remember when I first came to the United States, and I grew up in Romania where everything is in metric. And then I tried to adjust to what people are doing here. You know, everything is an ounce or a pound or a quart or a gallon. You know, we used to measure the gasoline that you put in the trunk of a car by liters. How many liters you need, well, how many liters is a tank, how much per liter you pay. And here is a gallon, and a gallon is not even a round number of liters. It's like 3.8 liters or something like that. So, and the same thing with the ounce. An ounce is like 28, 29 grams, something around there. And same thing with a kilogram. You know, I used to think that it was very logical. I still think the metric system is very logical. You know, you have 1 gram, and if you have 1,000 grams, you have a kilogram, and if you have 1,000 kilograms, you have a ton. Whereas here, a pound is 2.2 kilograms, and then how do you go from there? You know, how do you picture that in your mind? So it took a few years to get used to this thing. But anyways, that was a parenthesis that was triggered by this formula here. So coming back to our discussion, you're a female that weighs 140 pounds. If you convert that in kilograms and you use the formula 63.5 kilograms times 0.8, it's about 50 grams, 50.8 grams of protein that this person would need per day to get enough protein. There is a second formula that's used and recommended in the literature, and that goes by the percentage of calories. See, proteins are one of the 3 macronutrients that our body is able to use, among other things, to generate energy. Protein, carbohydrates, or sugars, and the third one is fats or lipids. And a gram of protein has about 4 calories or kilocalories, more technically, whereas a gram of fat has 9. A gram of carbohydrates has 4 grams of calories, 4 calories also. So anyways, if somebody is eating or needing 2,000 calories a day in their diet, that means that 200 of those calories, or 10% of them, should be coming from proteins. And if you divide the 200 by the 4 calories that a gram of protein has, you would then get the 50 grams that we looked at. So both formulas yield about the same amount of protein is what I'm trying to say. You may have come across recommendations, especially if somebody is trying to develop their muscle mass, or they are very active, they are athletes, where some people recommend increasing the percentage of calories that come from protein up to 15%. And most experts think that if you go above 15 towards 16% and above, that is too much. That's going to stress your kidneys and other things in your system too much. So there is a limit to everything, and even proteins that are good for you, if you eat too much of them, is not a good thing. And the reality is, in this world, Western world we live in, whether the United States or Western Europe or any other Western society, or a Western lifestyle society, most people actually eat a lot more protein than this minimum that I'm showing you here. And so again, finally coming to the question that I raised at the beginning, how do vegetarians get their protein? Where do they get it from? I put down here a sample vegetarian menu, and here on the right column I listed next to this food item the amount of protein that you can expect to get from it. And so you can see here this person ate 2 tablespoons of peanut butter in the morning, perhaps, and that brought in a little bit over 7 grams of protein. And then over the course of the whole day, they had 3 slices of whole wheat bread, and those brought almost 12 grams of protein. You know, maybe 1 slice they used for the peanut butter in the morning, another slice they probably used to eat this tofu dish for lunch, perhaps another 12 grams and a little bit from that. And then maybe the 3rd slice of bread they used here in the evening for dinner, where they steamed, they boiled a large stalk of broccoli and eat it with that bread. And that broccoli also brought 6.7 grams of protein by itself. And then they had some fruit, as you can see here. A banana gives you a little bit of protein, an apple, and a little bit over half a gram of protein, as well as some nuts, you know, some English walnuts, which is one of my favorite nuts. An ounce of that gives you about 4.5 grams of protein. So if we do the total here, you see how you get exactly what we were saying earlier when we talked about their recommended daily amount of protein that they should be eating, about 51 grams. These food items that I just listed here already cover that amount. And if you think about it, a person that eats, you know, this is less than 2,000 calories a day. I put a bare bone skeleton menu here. You know, this person should eat more fruit. There's only 2 pieces of fruit here. They should have 5. They should have some salad. There's nothing like that yet except for broccoli, which is a, you know, vegetable perhaps. So if you really look at the whole menu, you can see how the protein intake on a strictly vegetarian vegan diet, there's nothing of animal origin on this menu. It easily covers that minimum amount of protein per day that this person should be eating. Now, some people ask, and appropriately so, okay, there's protein in plant foods, excuse me, but is that good quality protein? Are those essential amino acids that our body needs, that are the building blocks of protein, are they present in sufficient amount in these plant foods? And the answer is a resounding yes. You may not get all of them from just one food, but if you combine them, like even during the whole day, you don't have to necessarily combine them at the same meal. What essential amino acids may be lacking in peanut butter, you're going to find them in the whole wheat bread, or in the broccoli, or in the walnuts, and vice versa. So no issue there. In fact, people who study human nutrition, and I did that for a couple of years, some years ago at Andrews University in Washington. My mentor there was Dr. Winston Craig. is a name in Adventist circles in matters of nutrition. And I remember him and others saying that when experts look at this issue as to whether vegetarians get enough protein, the recommendation and the way to look at it is you don't have to count grams of protein like we did here for didactic purposes. You don't have to worry about it as long as you eat a variety of plant foods, like I try to illustrate here, and not every meal or every day the same things. And as long as you eat enough of these plant foods to keep your weight, normal weight, constant, automatically your amount and quality of protein that your body needs will be covered, will be assured. So no need to be anxious about this, no need to freak out if you consider experimenting with a plant-based diet or exclusively plant-based diet even for a while. Oh my, what I'm going to do with my protein? I'm going to become malnourished or protein malnourished or something like that. And so just to illustrate this issue in another way, I was going to show you here, and this is a tool that I developed during those years. You know, this broccoli that we have looked at earlier. Let's see, this one here that says cooked, boiled, drained, perhaps with salt, or you can do it without salt. It doesn't matter for our discussion. If you look at that and you try to see how much protein comes with this, you can see that. Let me go here and use a large stalk, you know, like an 11 to 12 inches long stalk of broccoli. You can see you can get the 6.7 grams of protein that I put here in this example that I showed you earlier, right? So 6.7 grams of protein in those in this amount of broccoli. Now you notice here you also get, when you eat this much broccoli, almost 100 calories, 98 calories. Let's round it up to 100 calories and 6.7 grams of protein. I wanted to do with you an exercise here just for teaching purposes. I don't recommend that you do this in real life. And that is, sometimes people say, well, you know, in the examples you gave us, of course you get the 50 grams of protein because you included some of the plant foods that are richer in protein, the peanut butter, even bread or tofu or you know, nuts and such. But how about green leafy vegetables? How about those foods that are low in calories and thus low in protein? Well, again, let's look at broccoli. Probably in the mind of most of us, broccoli does not excel in protein content. But let's do an exercise. Let's assume a person decides that all their 2,000 calories that they need in a day are going to come from broccoli alone. That's all they're going to eat in that day, nothing else. So if we are going to do that exercise, let's do 2,000 calories and divide it by 100, which was how many calories you get from that one stack of broccoli. And what you get here is 20. So, you know, 2,000 calories that you need in a day divided by this 100, which this serving of broccoli brings you, you would get about 20 servings of broccoli to make 2,000 calories. That's what I'm trying to say. So in order to cover your caloric needs per day, eating just that broccoli, you would need about 20 servings of this. Nobody can do that. I'm not suggesting you should do that. This is purely for the sake of discussing whether eating broccoli alone would cover somebody's need of protein in that day. So 20 servings times 6.7, let's do that piece of math. 20 times 6.7, you're going to get 134 grams of protein from this broccoli alone, as long as you ate enough to satisfy your caloric need for that day. Again, I'm not suggesting anybody does that. I just talked earlier about the need to eat a variety of plant foods to, just for the sake of enjoying it. Who's going to enjoy 20 servings of boiled broccoli? I eat one or two and then I'm done. But the point I'm trying to make is, even in this group of foods, plant foods that don't necessarily excel in the amount of protein that they contain, as long as you eat enough of them to satisfy your caloric needs, you get plenty. You get like 3 times as much protein than the minimum that your body needs, almost. So I hope you get the point. And the other point that I wanted to make here before I close is this. If you think about some of the largest animals in the world today, what comes to mind? You can think of an elephant, right? Or a giraffe. Or closer to home, like this big cattle, cows and horses. And and these are the animals that have the most muscle mass, the most weight that we know, except for marine animals, perhaps, some of those. What are these land animals eat? Do they eat tons of meat to build that muscle? Is how is that? They eat mostly grass, mostly plant foods, perhaps some cereal if they have an owner that feels generous about feeding them, right? And some fruit, but all plant foods, really. And so that has more than one implication. Number one is it should provide some reassurance to us that we don't have to depend on animal foods to build up muscle, to satisfy our need for protein. Number two, when we get, obviously we don't need to eat grass, but the point I'm making is about plant foods. I hope you understand that, right? Number two, when we choose to get our protein from animal sources, whether it's meat or eggs or dairy products, we are getting our protein in a very inefficient and very environmentally taxing way. This is something that I call the best kept secret of global warming or environmental damage. A lot of times when we talk about global warming and protecting the environment, people think about getting electric cars and closing coal plants and things like that, and planting more trees and so forth. And that is true. But if you look it up, and I challenge you to do that exercise and really research this, maybe I'll make a separate video sometime soon on this topic. Cattle farming, dairy farms, pig farms, raising animals for food happens to be one of the top reasons and greenhouse generating activities that us humans engage in, together with other pollutants that are generated in the process. And so it's good for you to get your protein from plant sources. It's good for the environment, and it's good for the animals. You don't have to kill them for you to eat. And it's good for your health. More on this to come in the future if I will have time. I wanted to continue this series. Anyways, I wanted to encourage you to consider, if you haven't, including more plant sources of protein, experimenting even with becoming vegetarian for a day at a time, or several days at a time, or a week, or 3 weeks. Any step in this direction is going to be beneficial. If you have any questions, do let me know. I'll be happy to try to answer them. And I wish you a great evening.